tried to put my camera the other way around and it wouldn't let me. So I want that little candle in the background. Look how nice that looks. It's the ambiance. You've got to have that. It's really important. So what is up, people? Happy Sunday. I hope you are having a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you guys are joining from. So once you join onto here, let me know down below where you are joining from, how it's going for you, how your August is going. I do know that in certain parts of the world, there is a major heat wave. We're not getting any of it here in the UK, but anyway, I've got some notes down here, but I wanted to touch up on a few things first because I went live, I think it was June, and I wanted to touch up on a few things because a few things have changed since then. Sorry, this looks like I'm some sort of school teacher, but I'm genuinely not. I've just got my notes. So if you know, I'll have my notebook here. I've got some notes that I didn't want to miss out on anything because I always say like, oh, I'm going to remember to say this or remember to say that. And then I don't. And then when I switch off, I haven't said it. And then I'm like, for God's sake. But last time I spoke, I want to get this out of the way first before I actually go into what this video is going to be basically about. More so about like good girl conditioning, if you can see from the title, good girl conditioning, and how being stubborn was an absolute game changer for me. There is more on that. There also is a video on what I'm going to touch up on when it comes to like how people speak to us child-free people as a way of kind of trying to put us off, make us feel guilty, etc., etc., especially if you are a female as well. Now, I spoke briefly about a membership. I was thinking about getting a membership site together. However, after some thought and after listening to what a lot of people were saying and feeling and thinking about it, I decided to go away from that because personally I feel like it wasn't the right thing to do for the community, and I want everyone ultimately to just be happy and get something out of it. So I wanted it to be of value to you guys, and if it can't be, then I'm not going to go ahead and do that. I want you guys to have a space or a corner on the internet where you feel like you can be safe and you can come here and, you know, either vent or, you know, have somebody else talk to, or even if you just go through comments and think like, oh, you know, these people are making me actually feel better about myself, or I'm not alone, or something like that. If you're lonely, definitely come and hang around here because, you know, you've got loads of people to talk to. Or even if you're just going through the comments and not commenting yourself and making yourself feel better, then you can see that you're not alone, genuinely not alone as well. Oh my God, hi from Germany. Hey, how are you? And I was going to be really British and say, what's the weather like over there? Because we're just obsessed with asking about weather. I caught you live this time. Love and appreciate your channel so much. We need more women like us. Multiple thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being here as well. I 150% always appreciate you guys, whether you are joining live or whether you are catching this up on a replay. If you are joining in and if you're coming on board, then just let us know down below where you're joining from. Hi, child-free life for the win. Oh my God, I didn't see that comment at first. Child-free life for the win as well. Yes, 150%. Actually, I've just been filming some content that I'm going to be putting up next weekend. So I've just been doing that, and I quickly quickly changed some stuff over, like joys of being a content creator. But I wanted to go over some good girl conditioning because I was looking through a Facebook post. Actually, I'm always looking through Facebook and on the internet because you come across great content ideas, and it just made me think. And let me know if you guys have experienced this down below. There's a lot of this stuff, especially when you're a young girl, even before you before you know about like procreation, having children, you know, learning about the choices that you have, and learning about whether you do want it or don't want it. Obviously, us lot here, I'm guessing if you guys are hanging around, then you guys know from whichever age you were like, I don't want children at all. But you get this kind of, and society does it a lot. And society does it in a way that is very subtle. It's kind of like in adverts, in billboards and stuff like that, where it's always constantly surrounding us. And that is good girl conditioning. And it's always kind of like, you know, be a good girl, be on your best behavior, be good for mummy, be good for daddy, be good for your teacher, be good for this person or be good for that person. It's always like we have to be this, you know, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, this kind of person who's consistently just being a good person. Like, you have to be of service to everybody else. Like, you're not a real woman unless you are consistently like pouring into other people and absolutely burning yourself out. And it just reminded me, I had these notes already written up this morning for this very live. And I just came across a post on Facebook of this woman who was like parading. She took her 4-year-old to what was it called, like a music festival, and it had like headphones on and everything like that, because obviously it's not a place where you take a 4-year-old, right? And everybody in the comments was kind of praising her, like, yeah, you've got this all, mama, you know, you can have it all, and you know, well done. And all right, fine, the woman probably couldn't find a babysitter and she wanted to go to this music festival. Okay, fine, fair enough. However, it's not really somewhere you take your child, right? It's kind of dangerous. Then it's not really their thing. They're not into that kind of stuff. They don't understand it. You know, it's a lot of crowds. It can be really, really overwhelming for a child, that kind of environment. So it just made me think, like, there is this idea that women should be everywhere all at once. We have to be everything. We have to be ticking all the boxes. We have to be this good girl all the time. We have to be this seen, not heard person. We have to be pretty all the time. We have to be smiling all the time. How many women are watching this right now where you have been told, oh my God, you should smile more often? I know I definitely have. I do know I've got a resting bitch face. But saying that, I just find this comment so patronizing. You know, let me know if you've down below, you've seen this, you've heard this before, of like, oh my God, you should smile more. Or what? And if you're in a bad, God forbid, if you're in a bad mood, if you're in a bad mood, it's always like, oh, you can't be in a bad mood. How dare you be angry? How dare you talk about how angry you are? It's always this kind of general reaction from society. It's not anyone in general. It can be a lot of men, but I don't want to make this sound like I'm slating all men, because it's not. But a lot of the time it can be a lot of men who are consistently like, you know, unless you're pouring into everything and putting all your energy into everyone, and you're this happy person and you're always motivated and you're always being kind to everyone, and you know, you're always allowing people to kind of disrespect you, and like, you brush everything off. So if somebody says something to you that you disagree with or that you don't like, it's kind of like you have to just brush it off. Oh, it's okay, she'll get over it. Like, no, why? What is this kind of conditioning? Starts from a very, very young age, and your parents were more than likely doing it to you as well. I know my parents did, and it was not intentional. I don't blame them at all. They did do a lot of this kind of, oh, you know, because I had an older brother, and let me tell you, he got away with a shit ton of stuff that I could not get away with. So if I was caught doing the same stuff or talking in the same way or having the same interests even, it was very much like, no, you can't do that. That's what your brother does. You do this. And it was all very much to keep everybody on the straight and narrow. Because if women aren't on the straight and narrow, we can actually achieve quite a shit ton of stuff, as women in history have shown us. You know, I'm sure you've all heard the saying, women who well behaved seldom make history, or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's true. You know, if we didn't have the Rosa Parks of this world, if we didn't have the Amelia Earharts of this world, you know, these women, the Marie Curies, these women making changes, then we as in us, like my generation, your generation, we wouldn't have these opportunities that we have now. Because if these women had sat quietly and been like, oh yeah, I better not go and fly that plane, or, you know, I better not go and invent this, discover this, you know, penicillin or whatever it was. I'm just going to go through some of these comments, because otherwise they'll go too far up and then I'm going to miss all of them. Just saw a meme about Barbie and how she's child-free. I wish all the mums fun watching the movie with their screaming 3 kids, seeing how nice it must be being a child-free woman. Do you know what's weird? It's so interesting that you mentioned the Barbie movie, because I watched this last week with my sister-in-law, and it's weird that I didn't, I was, a lot of people are talking about it on social media, as you know, and everyone's got their own like perspective of what happened in the movie as well. And one of the reasons I didn't want to go and watch it is because I thought that the theatre was going to be full of kids. And I avoided it, and I avoided it, and I avoided it. And then my sister-in-law was, do you want to go and watch it? I've already watched it. I'm happy to go and watch it again. I was like, oh, okay then. I was like, and then I heard that it kind of wasn't really a kid's movie. And I'm telling you, that movie was eye-opening. Unbelievably eye-opening. I even said to my husband, I'm going to make you watch that movie, because I actually think all men need to see that movie. 150% all men need to see it. But it's interesting that you said that you know the mums enjoyed it with their screaming kids. I was dreading going because I was like, I hope there are no kids sat next to me, or like I'm actually gonna watch this film in peace. I tell you what, there wasn't a sound from the theater. Like, it was kind of full. There was not a peep. I didn't hear one kid. And then when we were walking out, we actually saw a few kids. And I was like, oh, they must have been really well behaved, because I didn't hear a peep. I don't know what they took from the movie, because it's true what they're saying. It is adult content. I do know Barbie is a child's toy. We've all been there with playing with it. I only ever had one Barbie, and that was a Baywatch Barbie, and that was because she was sporty. But yeah, I did love the overall. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way, because it's so weird. It just crossed my mind. Like, I watched it and I was like, yeah, that this is a great film. It's really quite empowering for women and for obvious reasons. But I do think that it's got a very special message that I actually think a lot of men need to listen to. Yep, definitely. So men need to go and have a look at that and then see how life is for us. But I think deep down they know, and they're quite happy they're not having to deal with half the shit we have to deal with. Are you or your hubby sterilized or looking to get sterilized in the future? That is a really good question, actually. I was just going through this with someone. We are actually not. However, I know that that's available to me because I'm in a country where, luckily, and I am very grateful for this, I am open to having a procedure and have looked into it and have been to the doctors and spoken about that. So it's actually free where I am. I'm in the UK, and that procedure can be done for free. If somebody's got private healthcare, they can actually go and get that done as well. They'd obviously have to pay for that, but their healthcare providers will be able to do that for them. But what's really interesting is I've done a lot of research into this, because the first time I asked my doctor was when I was 28, and then I went again at 29, and then again at 30. And obviously each time I was kind of rejected, or I was looked at like, you're a bit fucking weird. But then I went again at about 33, and they were kind of fine with it. They were like, yeah, definitely. They were like, yeah, let's sign you up, put you on the list and everything like this. And I was like, oh, do you mind going through all of the, you know, I want the lowdown. I want to know all the risks. I want to know what can potentially go wrong and stuff like that. And then they went through it, and they have to paint the worst case scenario for you because that's their job as healthcare providers and doctors. And I totally appreciate that. I was asking them everything. I was like, don't hold anything back. I want to know exactly what the ins and out of this procedure is. And it's not got anything to do with me trying to reverse it or anything like that. When it comes to my husband, I'm going to put him to one side because that's his autonomy and it's not my business what he does. So, obviously we have had that conversation, but ultimately he does what he does with his body. So I've just left that up to him. I'm open to getting that done. But however, I feel like I've got to an age now where I haven't got long left anyway before the chances are minimal, like they're minimizing anyway. So for me, I felt like I'm safe with what I'm doing at the moment in terms of I've obviously trialed and errored with contraception for a very, very long time, as have many women. And I've had a lot of pills and birth control pills, which didn't work for me. All right, yes, they prevented the pregnancy, but they gave me a whole host of other issues, including severe mental health issues. That was how I suffered. I've heard a lot of women have suffered really badly, like physically, like they've got really bad acne, or they've had bad weight gain or something or another along those lines. For me, it was really bad mental health. So it took me into a deep state of depression, anxiety, panic attacks, stuff like that. And I just couldn't live like that anymore. And the thing is with society, not society as such, the thing is with a lot of doctors is they normalize it. And they're kind of like, oh yeah, well, that's just a side effect, like kind of get over it. And why should anyone have to live like that? And I'm actually just putting a small ebook together about contraception, which is interesting that you should ask about that, because I was just working on it earlier on this afternoon and getting it all finalized so that women can understand there are so many different forms of contraception out there. It doesn't have to just be in the form of a birth control pill. It doesn't have to be you sacrificing your mental and physical health if they give you those side effects. They don't always. But for a lot of women that I've spoken to, they have gone through hell and back with some of these pills because, you know, they do know the side effects, but also at the same time, they feel like their hands are tied because they're like, well, you know, I will do anything in my power to prevent a pregnancy, which is fair enough. So that was a bit deep. That went a little bit deep. I hope I answered your question. But in all honesty, I just feel like, because to round it up, when I went through the pros and cons of that procedure, it scared the life out of me what could have gone wrong. So for me, and I'm not trying to put anyone off this at all, by all means, please go ahead and do whatever it is you feel is right for your body. Don't ever let anyone talk you in and out of anything. I'm not here to talk anyone in or out of anything. Ultimately, it's your decision and you discuss it with your doctor. But I discussed that with my doctor, and I said I'll have a little think about it, because some of the risks were a little bit higher than I anticipated. And I didn't even realize, like, I'm actually glad I asked them those questions, because I would have just, if I'd done it like 10 years ago, I would have just gone in and not thought about the possible side effects and what could happen and what could go wrong. And if I could go into early menopause, that was one of the risks as well, especially because of my age. So I was kind of like, oh shit, like, I didn't actually realize some of these risks. And I'm glad I asked questions. So if you are going to a doctor to ask these questions, please ask as many as you need to until you feel physically comfortable and you feel like you've had all the questions answered by your healthcare provider, your doctor, your gynecologist, whoever it is that you go and see about and give advice about those. Hey Jade, please mention something about child-free community application that can connect people like us. Do you know what? Apart from, there's loads of groups on Facebook. There's loads of child-free channels, as I'm sure you've seen. I watch a lot of these as well. Like this, I just watch some of them just because they're so funny. But definitely, if you're looking for kind of groups, if you do use Facebook, there are loads of groups on Facebook, and there are loads. What's good about Facebook is there's loads of groups with different kind of a different kind of a vibe. So you might get some groups which are like quite aggressive and they might have a lot of dark humor. So if you're child free but you like kids, it might not be the group for you, because a lot of people make a lot of like dark jokes, which a lot of people don't find funny. So I've definitely seen a lot of arguments in Facebook groups about, you know, where do you draw the line kind of thing of, you know, I'm child free but I don't hate kids, or I'm child free, I'm full on antinatalist. Like, you know, there's different layers to it. So just find where fits for you. And then you can definitely find your tribe, because it took me years to find my tribe, because I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about this, and I didn't feel like I could talk about it on Facebook, because I was like, I'm going to upset someone. My friends are on there. Some of my neighbors are even on there, and I'm kind of like, oh my God, I hope they, you know, don't throw eggs at me and stuff like that. I do hope that's answered your question. Please let me know if it hasn't. The misogyny is real. Yes, it certainly is. And the Barbie movie went over that as well. If a male is irritated by a Barbie movie, leave him, not debatable. One more tool to let go of bad ones. Sorry, God, I'm having to really lean right in. I think I need to go to the opticians. But yes, definitely. I don't know. I've seen more women talk about it. I totally respect from a man's perspective, but I think a lot of men have probably watched it and been like, you know, I better not say anything, because they know deep down that, you know, society praises them all the time. Like, you can do so bare minimum as a man and get praised, like, let's face it, but a woman will have to do like triple the amount and still get knocked down. But something I found really, something that, like, when the penny dropped for me with that movie, it was like, I do get the whole female empowerment and all of that, but what someone said earlier, one of the comments just popped up about misogyny is real. It definitely is real, but I've noticed it actually comes from a lot of women as well. So a lot of women onto other women, that's what I find has created a lot of misogyny, because a lot of women are actually misogynist, but they don't even realize that. So this is what I said about the conditioning, like the societal conditioning of, like, you know, women need to know their place, and, you know, you can't be this, you know, you can't be too out there, you can't be too much, you have to dim your light, you have to bring it down a notch. I'm sure at some point you've heard someone talk about these, and it's it's actually heartbreaking to think that a lot of women are like that, because a lot of them just don't understand, and it's simply just the environment that they were raised in. So whoever their parents or carers were, whoever raised them, it's just learned behavior. A lot of unless you start growing up and you start questioning certain behaviors in your household, or wherever it is that you were raised, you won't know the difference. You'll be completely indifferent. You won't know any different. You'll just be like, oh, this is, this is the way people were around me, so that's the way I'm going to be around everyone else. And they don't realize their own behavior. They don't know the fault in their own errors. And again, it just comes down to societal conditioning. And that happens, again, a lot of the time on like adverts, on films, on TV programs, on billboards, in books, in stories, in school. It is literally all around us. If you look at kids' toys in the kids section, I'm pretty sure you probably don't hang around the kids section a lot, but I've had to buy my niece and nephews a couple of gifts before. And if you go into a kids section, even the clothing, some of the stuff that's on the clothing, like the writing on it, is just all very like, boys belong here, girls belong here. Boys will do this when they grow up, girls will do this when they grow up. It's all very like, stay in your lane. Whereas, why can't women just grow up and find their own lane? Like, why, there are more women growing up now and going into like aeronautics and aviation and engineering and, these subjects which are, more male dominant. And I definitely experienced a lot of misogyny in the personal training industry. That has to be a story for another day, because I don't want to open up a can of worms right now. But yeah, Mo Riviera, definitely go and see the movie. Honestly, see the movie. Take male friends and family members with you. I know they might have a little bit of resistance, but I think it's a good thing for them to, I think it's a good thing for them to kind of learn as well and to see. But I was worried about the room being full of kids too. I'm surprised it wasn't. I was ready to walk. I was literally like, there better not be any kids like screaming and shouting near me, because this is why I avoided it. But I'm so glad I actually went. You could talk about that film for hours, because there's so many different ways that people perceive it. And even my sister-in-law was like, oh, I saw this part of it, and I saw it from this viewpoint and this perception. And she was sharing her viewpoint on things, and I was like, oh yeah, like I wouldn't have thought of that. And again, it depends on the person and where you are in your life, and where you stand with certain things. And it is definitely eye-opening, very, very eye-opening. Okay, so being stubborn, let's talk about this. Please let me know down below if any of you guys have been called stubborn. And I bet you any money it was not said in the nicest of ways. So a lot of people call others stubborn as a kind of insult almost. So it's kind of like, oh, you're so stubborn. It's never said as a kind of positive. But if you think about it, now obviously there's loads of different avenues to how being stubborn can be used. But if you stick to your guns, and this can be with anything, by the way, this can be with absolutely anything. It can be with forgiveness. It can be with like just your own morals and your own values in your own life, in your own personal life, with your own boundaries. If you're stubborn, it means you've got boundaries of some sort, which means you're actually winning, really, if you think about it. Society, I've noticed, is always consistently knocking women down who are either creating boundaries, who are like standing up for themselves and for others as well, being confident in making decisions and knowing what they want. And that is just a fact now. Like that is why you have, if you go back the years, that is why you have all of this good girl conditioning. That is why all that society is like, society's training you to like dumb it down, or like dim your light, or know your place, and all of this stuff. I definitely experienced this a lot as a teenager. You're always really, really scared of the repercussions of like, if you stand up for yourself, or if you're stubborn, or if you won't budge on something, somebody somewhere will kind of say something negative. But I personally don't believe being stubborn is a negative trait as such. It can be stubborn it can be negative if it's causing immense pain for someone else, or you're hurting someone intentionally. That's when it could be potentially negative. However, me personally, I don't find this insulting when someone says to me, oh, you're so stubborn. I'm just like, yeah, I am. And it's actually saved me. It's actually given me a greater purpose in, not a purpose in life, it's just given me a greater lifestyle, really. And I've become happier in the process of being more stubborn and actually leaning into it instead of having it something that I'm embarrassed about. Because a lot of people used to make me feel embarrassed about it. They used to make me feel there's something wrong with me. And I definitely know for a fact, having spoken to so many of you guys, that you guys at some point have been made to feel like there's something wrong with you, that you're broken, that you're not enough, that you're not full, that you're not quite complete, and all of this. And so many parents say it. They're like, oh, my baby's completed me. Like, what? I don't understand that. Like, you were a complete human already. But anyway, that's another ball game. People always scare me by saying die alone kind of things. I don't give a damn to these things. But when someone close to us says such things, I really feel sad, because every time it's hard to ignore. It can get hard. Yeah, it can get hard to ignore. For more to the point, it's frustrating for you, because why should you have to listen to that? Why should you have to listen to it time and time again about kind of, you know, dying alone? It's such a grim topic. I don't understand why people always bring it up, because it's almost like people are fascinated. That's what I said in my last video from like a week ago. Is like people are just fascinated by negativity, or like death, or being alone, and like all of these things, whereas this might not even happen. Yet people are so scared it's going to happen. They go and pull all the shots out to make sure it doesn't happen, by having kids, by, you know, making sure their kids are going to try and look after them when they're older. And I always just think to myself, there's still no guarantee. You can have 10 kids and none of them come and see you. And then you've created what? You've created 10 other humans. And for what exactly? You know, it does. So I do understand where you're coming from, Sparkles. It's scary to think why people think about it all the time. I mean, if you're thinking that far ahead, or you're thinking of dying constantly, or you're thinking of dying alone, then it's kind of like you must not be living your life right now, because that person is not living in the present moment. They're constantly living in the future. Oh, what's going to happen then? What's going to happen then? What's going to happen when I'm 70 or 80 or 90? You might not even make it. I know this sounds grim, but that's why I'm gonna stop it there, because I don't want you guys to feel like, oh, this is getting depressing now, because it is depressing. Why would you want to think about that? Being called difficult. So this is another thing. Let me know down below if you've ever been called difficult before. Like, oh, what are you being difficult for? And it could be anything. It could be that, I don't know, you've said no to something, you don't want to engage in something, you don't want to go somewhere, you don't want to go out with someone, you don't want to go around someone's house. It could be literally any situation. And I find this, again, ties in a very kind of close-knit with being called stubborn. And the only reason you're being called difficult is because the other person can't get their way with you. And please be careful, a lot of women, because men can do this a lot. And it's just I find it just so manipulative if they go further than that. But I just find a lot of the time, people are like, oh, you're being so difficult, you're being so difficult. And I used to get called this a lot, and it used to make me think, oh shit, maybe I am difficult. Oh, I don't want people to dislike me. Because we all kind of want to, as humans in general, we all want to be accepted and liked to an extent. But obviously, as you get older, you start realizing like more about the world, you realize more about yourself, you grow into yourself, you learn a lot about who you are, what your core values are, what you stand for, what you won't stand for, all of this kind of stuff. And as you get older, you might quote unquote become more difficult. And that is because you set up those boundaries. Again, it comes back to those boundaries. Once you have them in place, you're going to find a little bit of resistance from the people around you in your immediate circle. So that's why it might be initially quite difficult to actually put them down, because you're kind of like, oh shit, I'm upsetting people. I don't want to lose people. Obviously, you don't want to lose friends. You don't want to lose family. And that's understandable. But if they keep disrespecting that boundary, then that's totally not fair on you. Why should you neglect you? And again, that is what society kind of wants from a lot of women, or expects, like, oh yeah, you need to sacrifice. You need to sacrifice who you are, sacrifice your own happiness just to make this person happy, or that person, or just to make sure you're looking like you're smiling and you're happy all the time. you know, this kind of bouncing energy all the time. Well, that's not real life. Like nobody lives in that energy constantly. It would be nice, but it's kind of not realistic, is it? So a lot of the time you're probably gonna be called at some point difficult, because you're doing something, dare you do something for yourself. The only reason people are doing that and saying that is, again, so that they can put doubt in your mind. People don't want to be disliked, ultimately. But the truth is, if you think about it, we don't like everyone. Like, I don't like everyone. You don't like everyone. So not everyone's going to like us as individuals, like when we meet someone new, or if your friends meet someone new, or if your siblings bring a partner home, you might not necessarily like them, and that's absolutely fine. I think people need to be okay with either both not being liked and not liking other people, because it's totally fine. You're not always going to vibe with people. Your energy is different. Your vibration is completely different, and that's okay. If you find that someone's not vibrating or vibing with you or on the same level, that's absolutely fine. But just be aware that if people are gonna try and chuck insults at you, like, oh, you're being difficult, you're being stubborn, you're being this, you're being that, all of this is just chucked at us so that we can dim it down. And so that we can, oh, come down a notch or two, or, you know, bring her down another level, or tone it down. Have you ever heard this? Tone it down. What the fuck is tone it down? No, I'm gonna actually be a little bit louder. What do you think? Let me know what you think down below. So I think back to the countless times I was called difficult or stubborn, and now it's not even a bad thing. Like, people don't call this to me anymore because I don't actually take it as an insult. Like, I don't actually get offended. And a lot of the time people think they're offending you when they say these things. And they think when you get upset and offended, you're going to change yourself overnight. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to stop being this stubborn person. Actually, you're not stubborn. You're just putting boundaries down. You're just sticking to what you believe in. You're just sticking to your values, or what you want or don't want out of life. And one of them, obviously, is your choice to be child-free. So that's definitely come with a little bit of resistance from some family members, if not even just one or two. Or people give you that face of like, what do you know about yourself? You're a young girl. And they're going to start patronizing you because they think that you don't know your mind. And it's all of these things. They all come under the same umbrella initially, of this kind of going right back to the beginning of the video, of this good girl conditioning, and this, you know, believing you have to be this person so readily available for everybody. Absolutely everybody. And you have to come last. That's what the idea is. But as child-free women, or community, if you're a man and you're joining, when you're putting yourself first, society will try and make you believe that you're being selfish. Because how dare you put yourself first? But the truth is, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Nobody can. That includes you. So you need to put you first. You need to put your health and well-being and your mental health first. And then you can serve others. And then you can be there for your friends and your family and your partners. Or your nieces and nephews, if you like looking after them. So if I had to let that get me down, I would have tried to change that part of me. I would have tried to go, oh, okay, let me stop being so stubborn. Let me stop doing X, Y, Z. And let me be more available for A, B, C. So that they can use you and abuse you and God knows what else. Because some people, they just want to be available for you. They just want you to be available for them when it's convenient for them. And then when it's not convenient, you drop you like a sack of spuds. But that ain't a vibe. So some people want access to the good parts of you. And I noticed this a couple of years ago with actually not just colleagues and friends, but sometimes even some clients that I've had in the past as well. They want access to the nice parts of you. They want access to like the happy you, and, you know, you should never have a bad day, and, you know, how dare you be real, and how dare you be honest. You should cover up your feelings for everyone. You should constantly wear this mask. And to be fair, I know this is a child-free channel, but to be fair, a lot of parents have to do this as well. They probably have to do it more than anyone else. And I actually feel quite sorry for them, because a lot of parents have to constantly feel like they're putting on this mask of, this life is so perfect and I absolutely love it. And oh my God, we never have a bad day. We're always busy. No 2 days are the same. And, you know, it's so fulfilling and it's so meaningful. And I have a reason to get up in the morning. And you hear them come up with all of these kind of, not excuses necessarily, because that might genuinely be how they feel, but it's almost like forced. because that's what society expects of them. Like, oh, you're a parent, so you should be enjoying yourself. You should enjoy every single day. You should never moan. And to be fair to them, that must be friggin' exhausting because they can't even switch off. They can't even have a day off. They can't even go on vacation and chill out and switch off, because the bottom line is they're always going to be a parent, like 24/7. Even when their kids are adults and left, they are still going to be a parent. And they're still going to have this expectation to like show up as this happy person. Like I never have bad days and I don't want to moan because I'm going to seem ungrateful and all of this. And it's like, geez, Louise, no wonder us lot don't want kids. It's just exhausting. Hey, Christian. Lovely to see. Where are you joining us from? Let us know. Absolutely, I see their fake smiles. It's sad. I know, and it is sad for them because it's all fair for us lot to sit here and be like, oh my God, thank God that's not me. Like I wouldn't ever want to like rub that in anyone's face unless they were like really asking for it. But it's a shame because they feel like they're going to get heavily judged if they're even having one bad day. And we all know they have shit days. That's kind of one of the reasons we don't want to be parents, is because we can see the hardships of it. We can see how exhausting it is. We can see the world that we don't want to bring our kids into. And that's that's why we kind of want to take a step back and be like, no, I don't want a bit of that. But also it's the judgment. So we get judged a lot as child-free people, but the truth is they're also getting a shit ton of judgment, not just from child-free people, but actually from other parents. So these guys actually have it, in my opinion, I actually think they have it 10 times worse because they get judged by each other, which I think is even worse because they should technically be there for each other, because they should understand what that parent is going through. If anyone's a parent, whether you've got one child or 10, you should understand what the other person is going through and actually have a bit more support. But it's almost very much like, oh, they're raising their child in this fashion and I'm doing it in this fashion and they're wrong and I'm right. And I just could not be bothered with that shit because that is just too much. That is just, I couldn't do that because I would just get so pissed off because there's kind of almost no right or wrong. And even amongst other parents, there's kind of this judgment of who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong. But we all know there's no right or wrong. Hey, and love from Jamaica. Not a big child-free support here, but I love the internet community. Hey, lovely to see you, GoldenEye. Thanks to the universe, I'm an atheist, and when I saw your video for the first time, I was really in tears. Oh my God, I hope they were happy tears. Because you spoke my feelings, which was never revealed to anyone. Seriously, you're so beautiful. Oh my God. Right, so first of all, thank you so much. But I hope they were good tears and more of a release as opposed to like, oh, I've upset your feelings, because I'd be horrified if I did that. But this is the thing. Sometimes, I mean, when I first started this channel and I had that first video, I was a bit like, right, this can go really wrong. But what if I reach all of those people who actually needed to hear that? And who maybe in countries and continents around the world where it's not spoken about. Like no one even speaks about it, like never. No one ever speaks about it. We're lucky in certain countries, like where I'm from, you can speak about that. But I do know that in a lot of other countries and communities around the world, especially like religious communities, I'm not going to go down that's a different kettle of fish, but especially religious communities, you genuinely, like, you can't speak about this stuff. And if you did, it would be horrible. You might have a smear campaign against you. You might have people gang up on you. You might have, you might feel even more isolated than you might already feel. There's a lot of people who, when they discover they want to be child-free, they're like, I already feel isolated because I know XYZ is not going to support me. I know my parents won't have my back. I know my siblings won't have my back. I know my friends won't have my back. And that already is an isolating feeling. And I don't want anyone to feel like that. No one should feel like that. That's why I wanted that. Initially, I wanted that membership, but I kind of chose against it in the end because I wanted people to be like, right, I can go to this place if I'm starting to feel isolated or lonely or whatever it is that you're feeling, and understand that there's other people. We're all in the same boat ultimately. We've all got the same decisions. We've all got our own reasons as to why we made those decisions as well. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here, of course. I'm really grateful you guys are here and for always showing your support. So remember, you would have made a lot of, I'm going back to my notes. You would have made a lot of people's lives a lot easier if you had just gone with the status quo. But you're not here to make everyone's life easier. You're here to make your life worth living for you. You're here to make your life meaningful, whatever that looks like for you. So you add in what is meaningful for you. So if you just went along with the status quo, you just went through the motions and you just didn't question anything growing up, or you didn't ask your mum and dad questions or your carers, whoever raised you, you know, yeah, you're gonna be really popular with people because you're like easy to get along with, supposedly. But society will try and make you feel like there's something wrong with you, but there is not. There is not. Appreciate your content so much, Jade. Thank you so much, Zoe. I really, really appreciate that. I'm glad that you find value out of it and something out of it as well. But ladies, I've got a question for you guys. How many people told you when you were a kid, sit down, be quiet, be good, be this, be that, be careful? What is this be careful constantly? Like, I know people are I know people are worried about our well-being, but it's almost like you're raised to kind of be scared of everything because your parents are constantly like, be careful, be careful, be careful. Don't do this, don't do that. So be good. Yeah. And again, the boys were kind of told like, oh, boys will be boys, all of this stuff. Oh, they can go out and play like on their bikes, on their scooters, with their footballs and whatever. But no, you girls sit in the corner, play with your dolls, be a good girl, be kind, be polite, be quiet. This is why so many women then grow into adulthood and they're like, oh, I have to be quiet, I have to be good, I have to be this, I have to be that. Because from that young age, you were constantly told to stay in your lane or sit in your place or, you know, sit in your box and not come out here and rustle feathers. You know, young ladies are told to be seen and not heard. Yes, exactly. That is how young girls, this is why it absolutely makes me like dread. If I had a daughter, I would sleep with one eye open. I would not know what to do if I had a daughter I mean, I don't know what I'd do with any child, but with a daughter specifically, I'd have to, the way the world's going, I'd have to sleep with one eye open. Because I would not know, I would feel so torn because I would be here telling her to be bold, be ambitious, go for her dreams, whatever they may be, as long as she has a passion for them, I would want her to pursue them. But then out there in the big bad world, it's sit down, be quiet, be good, don't argue, don't this, don't ask questions. What is it? What do you mean don't ask questions? I was always told off in school for asking questions. I was like, I'm asking questions because I don't understand. But in school, well, especially where I am, the school system is unreal. I don't even want to open that can of worms right now because we'll be here all night. We'll be here till midnight. You guys will be ready for bed. Seriously. But it's constant. When you look back, and it's only now, like in my mid to late 30s, I'm now looking back and I'm like, oh my God, I was always told like, you know, you can't play the aggressive games. Like I wanted to be with the boys playing football and kicking a ball around and riding my bike and riding my blades. But it's like, oh no, don't do that. You might hurt yourself, but the boys can do it. It's okay. I'm like, no, I want to be out there playing with whatever I feel is, you know, for me, that was exciting. I didn't want to do it just because the boys were doing it. For me, it was exciting. I wanted to do that. But it's like, oh, you better not go down that road just in case. And at the moment, there is the Women's World Cup. I've just thought of this now. The Women's World Cup is happening at this moment in time. I think it's being held in like Australia or New Zealand. I'm not sure. I haven't really been following it because I'm not that big of a football fan in general. But the women's football is showing so many women out there these days. And I'm so glad, you know, the narrative is gently changing. It's not changing that quickly, but it is gently changing a little bit. The narrative is changing that women can actually go out there and take part in these sports and, you know, make a difference and not do the status quo and, you know, go out there and make a difference. And I'm so glad that they're actually doing that because even if a young girl's just watching that and just being like, oh, you know what, I'd love to try a bit of that. I didn't actually see a lot of that growing up. I don't think I ever saw a female football team for years growing up. I genuinely can't think of one. The only sports I used to see women doing was like the typical female sports, like where it's more female dominant, shall we say, kind of like gymnastics and stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love gymnastics, but it's more female dominant, I would say, just ever so slightly. I do know men do it as well. And obviously it's, you know, women go more into dance and men don't do that as much. And it's all very, you know, gender roles. It's all very like red tape, like this gender's here, that gender's here. And luckily now in today's society, it is becoming a little bit like people are starting to make a bit more noise about it, because people are like, oh really, like we're getting bored of this now. We're getting bored of constantly being told what we can and can't do, or where we should and shouldn't be. And it's exhausting, you know. So I'm just gonna go through a few comments and then I'll go through the last bit. Yeah, the condition. Okay. So, hey, I'm a big fan of yours. Hey, lovely to have you join us. I want to write so much, but words are limited. I love you, Jade. Want to meet you someday. You give my elder sister vibe. May you reach your goals. Oh my God. Like, I'm actually glad to hear that. So, no, honestly, guys, like, thank you so, so much. And if it's weird because I don't have any younger siblings. So, I mean, I've got a niece and a nephew, but they're obviously like toddlers. And I don't live in the same city as them. So I don't really see them as often unless it's through a screen. Mind you, everything's through a screen these days. But it's nice to know. And I'm glad that if I can just help, that's why in that community post that I put up a few days ago saying I was going to be live at this time, it was like I want them to be of value to people, because they might not have someone to reach out to. They might not have someone to speak to. And at least if they just go on this video, even if you don't listen for the whole whatever, if you don't listen for the whole time that I'm on here, you can just go through the videos and see from the comment section alone. You just need to view the comments just to see that you're not alone. And I can assure you there's nothing wrong with anyone on this feed here, whether you're joining live or you're going to watch later or anything like that. So just be aware whenever you're feeling that isolation, just be aware women are conditioned from a very, very young age. So just imagine if your parents, like your mother, whoever raised you, whoever birthed you, they were conditioned as well. And same, if you go back the generations, like your grandparents, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, they've all been conditioned a certain way. Like, women need to be like this. We need to behave like this. We need to do this. We need to give ourselves to everyone. We need to be constantly exhausted. And we're now starting to wake up in this world, in this century, and be like, no, we're not doing everything anymore. Like, we're going to do what lights us up, and the things that don't light us up, we're just going to leave it to one side. So please be aware that your mother was conditioned a certain way as well. And that's what that's why I used to have a lot of anger towards my parents. And I used to be like, because my mum's the complete opposite to me. So whatever you see of me here, my mum's the polar opposite. She's like really quiet, really gentle, really laid back. And yeah, I'm like this raging devil that came out of her. So yeah, again, you don't know what you're getting when you have kids, because my mum probably thought I'd be like her. Just saying, it's a gamble. So yeah, agreed. All women in my family, so Stephanie, is that all women in my family have been conditioned. We definitely all have, like from a very young age. So that's what you can just blindly follow the status quo when you're older. That is what it is all about. It's just about following the status quo, not questioning it. And when you do question it, you know, having people gang up on you, you can potentially have people gang up on you, and it's not a nice feeling. I've definitely been there myself. It's not a nice feeling. But this is why I talk a lot in a lot of my past videos. I talk about confidence and building up your own self-confidence, doing whatever it is that makes you feel so unbelievably good about yourself. And that can be absolutely anything. That can be going for a walk. That can be like making crafts, gardening, baking, cooking, whatever it is that makes you feel freaking amazing about yourself. And it gently, as you go on, the repetition, it will just build and build and build, and you'll have this confidence. You'll be able to stand your ground better. You won't feel as scared or as worried when someone disagrees with you, or if someone doesn't agree with your life choices. It won't be the end of the world, because you'll be like, all right, that's cool. You see something different to me, and that's absolutely fine. And I used to always panic about this. I used to be like, oh my God, this person disagrees with me. I hate it. And I'm going to try and get them to do this and get them to do that. But that just kind of, I realized that kind of makes us worse. Because if we're trying to make them be child-free, like if I'm trying to force someone to be child-free, that's just as bad as someone trying to tell me to have kids. I'm just as bad as that person. And I realized that afterwards. I was like, you know what? It's a wake-up call for me as well. But there will be these lessons. The universe is always sending us lessons. The universe, source, God, take what resonates, whatever you agree with or believe in. So I was born into this nonsense. Yeah, I feel the same sometimes. I've definitely had that conversation a few times with my husband, like, what is the reason? Why? But we find the reason. What is the meaning of life? Like, I even had this conversation. I got deep, like, I got really deep, and I had this conversation with my husband. I was like, what is the reason? Like, why are we here? You know, everyone goes on about how, you know, during fertilization, there's like trillions and billions of sperm, and you're like the one that fertilized the egg. Not to get scientific here, but this is what happens. And I just think, and people are like, oh, you know, there's a 1 in trillion chance that you are on this planet. And that was just eye-opening for me, because I was like, I still can't figure out why we're like, what are we doing? Like, what, we're on a spinning rock. And sometimes if I'm really overwhelmed and I'm going through this massive, you know, headfuck moment, shall we say, I just think we're on a rock, we're spinning in a universe. We're like a little ant dot thing on this planet. There's so much more going on. And it makes you take a step back and zoom out, see the whole picture, and realize that it's actually not as crazy as we think. We get like that when we're in that moment. But that deviated a little bit, so sorry about that. But thank you so much for joining me on this live, guys. I've really had fun going through that. I've really had fun chatting to you guys, going through your comments, and connecting with you guys a little bit more. So I am going away on holiday next month, so I'm planning to do a live from there. Destination to be revealed. Let me know your guesses down below of where I'm going. I hope I haven't said it somewhere now. No, I don't think I have. I've said I'm going away, but not where I'm going. So yeah, let me know down below if you have any guesses of where it might be. And I'm gonna catch you guys, as I mentioned, in the next video. Have an amazing day. Chat to you guys soon. Peace out.